Hello, Truman, and welcome to the first episode of The Elephant in the Room. The Elephant in the Room is an improvised debate theater where we bring people together from all kinds of backgrounds to discuss the elephant in the room. Now, today's topic revolves around the very public institution that provides you with this episode, school. According to an article on ABC17news.com, a law banning books with explicit or inappropriate images in Missouri schools went into effect on Sunday. Senate Bill 775 prohibits teachers from providing explicit sexual materials to students. Under this law, any educator in public or private K-12 elementary schools providing explicit materials will be charged with a Class A misdemeanor and that is punishable by a fine of up to $2,000 or a year in prison. Now, this is the latest measure in a series of legislative actions, not only in Missouri, but across the country, have taken to limit available reading materials accessible to youth in public education. You may have heard about the Tennessee School Board banning the book Mouse due to its supposed normalization of vulgar language in the classroom. So what are your thoughts? Let's address the elephant in the room.
Okay. So basically from what I got from that, in Missouri, teachers are not allowed to show explicit content to to their students, basically. So, would this also affect sexual education within school? So that's what I was thinking, because obviously there's different routes to talk about sexual education in school, right? So, personally, I don't know about everybody else, but I have not really learned anything about sex ed. And so the only thing I know from sex ed is either I had to look it up, heard it from other people, because that information is not accessible to me. It's not like something that was forced upon me. I had to learn. But I'm not sure if what I'm learning is the correct thing. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like at a certain age, students should be old enough, with parents' consent, of course, to be able to at least see explicit pictures of what it is, so you're not abusing what those sexual activities are.
I think the banning of books is stupid because you learn so many great things from books, so many great things about different types of people, cultures, and in reference to what Lori was saying, I think it's really important to know your own boundaries, and by learning your own boundaries, you can see that through books and other things and situations in books where you can see other people's boundaries and apply them to yourself.
I completely agree with Kaya. I think banning any type of literature that kind of shows the real world aspect of a number of different situations is just plain stupid. How are kids supposed to develop through things like sex ed, or even just getting exposed to those topics that their parents or other figures in their life are way too afraid to talk about? They're not going to learn that unless they are exposed at school through a well-written piece of literature.
I, again, agree, mainly because if you look at the historical implications of it, as we see with what the Nazis did in the early 1930s, 1900s, 1940s, yikes. They banned books that they deemed were not appropriate for the youth or not really appropriate for anyone to read. And so I feel like if we continue with this, then it's going to not really lead to another kind of Nazi-esque type, but it's kind of going to try and repeat itself, because the saying goes, history is doomed to repeat itself.
Okay. So, there's not much disagreement here.
Do you have a topic you think we could all disagree on?
Maybe a news
women's
article
rights, maybe?
Let me look up
Let's
what do you feel about women's rights? Let's
You go first, Gary.
go on, Gary.
Go on, Gary. As the male specimen in the room.
So I believe everyone deserves okay. Wow.
No, we
okay.
need to be open to this.
Come on, guys. But no, I really believe that everyone deserves to have equal rights no matter what. That's essentially a core value of mine. Now, I also believe that everyone has okay.
Now,
Keep going.
On the flip side.
Perhaps.
But no.
Let's hear about it.
Furthermore,
I do also believe that every being should have a right to life. This is gonna sound horrible,
go ahead.
but that kind of encourages equal life for all humans. That's what I'm trying to ultimately say. I believe everyone deserves to have a chance at living a life, and at least understanding what life could have been instead of just being taken away from it.
So now we have something to talk about.
All right.
Pardon me.
agrees with Gary, and now here's why. Hold on, I'm in the middle. Please don't hurt me. A part of me agrees with Gary just because don't move away. It's just because I don't believe there should be certain things that should be used as a form of birth control whenever those things are supplied to you. Even backup birth control, like Plan B, is available to lots of people, more accessible than like stuff like abortion is. So in that aspect, I agree with you. But I also think it should not be a law written into what we should and shouldn't do just because there's going to be so many exceptions. There's so many exceptions
Yeah.
to that certain.
And I would.
It's not a cut and dry issue.
It's not.
Yeah,
That's-
it's not black and white. There's
I
a
would
bunch of
100%
different factors.
So like going off what Gary said about like, you know, how everybody should have this chance at life, but we need to realize that we are teenagers in America. But anyways, coming from my background, I'm using that as an experience in Haiti. Kids don't have the same idealization of life. I mean, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere is where my family is right now. I mean, right now there's so much political instability. My parents don't even want to go back to the country they were raised in. Life for my cousins are extremely different than my life right now. I mean, my cousins walk miles for water when all I had to do is step out of my room, take 5 steps to the left, and there's my bathroom. So I feel like I don't want to. When I think about, oh, we need to force everybody, it's just like I can't bear to think about having another person having to live and experience through that. But I mean, but that's just a different idea. But even when it comes to America, I mean, people get pregnant even on the first try, I guess. And it might not be when you want it at the first time. It might be a 15-year-old girl who literally just tried it for the first time. It could be a 32-year-old woman who's having trouble with infertility. But when it goes to the little girl, I mean, we can't just force her. I mean, it's her decision. I mean, life with a kid is life-altering. I mean, instead of the focus being on you and then putting other people second, which I mean, that's in America, that's kind of like what we learn is that us first, then other people. You have a person to take care of. That person is like legally binded to you. So whatever happens to that person, you're basically responsible for it. So I do not feel like a 15-year-old is ready for such responsibility.
I agree with Lori in some aspects. I think personally on specifically the abortion issue, since we're kind of all leaning into that, I believe that if you are a person who is going to engage in sexual activities, you should always be prepared and just have that in the back of your mind. I wouldn't want to bring a life into something that was going to be more difficult for them to even survive, and they wouldn't really have a chance to flourish. So it's just a very complex issue, and I think that America is very focused on what they're doing, which of course, if you're going to make laws about a country, it's going to be about your country that you're in. So but I also think there's a bigger picture, and I think America's kind of separating themselves from everyone else in the world, and we're not thinking about, you know, other countries. We're just kind of thinking about ourselves. I don't think any like cutthroat like law should be made about abortion. I know that, you know, Roe v. Wade was overturned, but I think how it was when it before was overturned, when it was still in place, I think that was, you know, I don't know. It's a really complex, because on one side I'm on the, you know, one side of the spectrum where I'm like, oh, it should be at least an option for everywhere. But I know people who are in other, you know, mindsets, who come from a religious background, are always going to think differently.
We also have to think about there's some places in the United States that are just so unequipped for any abortion clinic to be there.
Yeah, they
So I don't know if it should be available necessarily everywhere.
like look at Nevada. They have like one big town. Like
I literally was
one
talking about that
hub.
yesterday. I was like, there was nothing
There's
there,
nothing there.
and then the mob came, and then there's plant,
There's literally just like
and
plant,
casino,
dry, desert,
and then dead
Las
people
Vegas.
in Lake Mead.
I think for us, like, if America was to go down the route to, like, you know, like, outlaw some certain parts of abortions, we would also have to improve A, our foster care system, and B, our adoption system. Because
Foster care for sure.
It's all
it's,
fucked up.
yeah. And also we need to find more support for families too, because, you know, if we're gonna have these people, like, you know, have children, we need to have support for these people.
I disagree with the family thing.
Really? Okay,
What'd you
explain.
say?
Well, I don't know. Well, I grew up like my mom, and I had like absolutely no money. Like I was working whenever I was like 11, so no money. But I mean, like, I agree the foster care system, adoption system, all those things need to be fixed. But
whenever you think about the past year that things have happened, families more than ever needed more money and more support. But whenever that was given to them, the whole United States population was affected because of those people that needed more help. And there was a lot more money distributed, and then it became a bigger issue. And now it's harder for those families even to afford things because of inflation. More money was distributed, more money printed, which means higher costs, lower wages.
Is that the driving force of inflation, though?
It's one of them. There's more than one, I personally think.
Well,
but I think, I'm not saying people should not support families. I'm just saying money is not the way you need to support families. It should be canned food drives. It should be supplying them with warm, comfortable places to sleep. Making sure like homeless shelters and places like that are actually shelters and not just like little tents or camps under like highways, like an overpass, like just little stakes like, put oh together. wow, this is such a nice place. I love your lighting. Yeah, it's the moon. I just think that rather than money and printing more money, it'd be more efficient.
I mean, I just think, in general, just like throwing money at people is not always going to be a good solution because you don't know what they're going to do with it. They could, go do something actually really good, like beneficial for them or others, but they also could just like lose it or spend it somewhere on something quick. Like that gets them like satisfaction for like a split second, like a piece of gum. You like put a piece of like juicy fruit. You put that stuff in your mouth.
Juicy fruit is disgusting.
Okay,
What? Do you guys see how like it took juicy fruit for us to?
You put that stuff in your mouth and it's gone within 6 seconds.
That's what I'm saying.
Put another one in.
But those 6 seconds are heavenly.
The 6 seconds are the quickest but best side.
I feel like you're talking about something else now. Like I literally.
Kaya had the best points. You win. Good job.
I did. Come on now.
Well,
Gary.
actually, Gary liked juicy fruit, so Gary had the best points.
Whoa!
Let's go!